Introspection here. I hope you like my new intro, and yes, I did make it myself. But that's not what I'm here to discuss today. Today, I am here to talk about the people who were forced into the shadows and bring them back out into the light to get the credit they deserve. Today, I'm starting with Robert Smalls. He is awesome, and let me tell you why. He was a slave, and he decided, forget this, I'm going to blow this pop stand. So he stole a ship. Not a toy ship, not a ship in a bottle, a whole ship. Let me tell you how he did this because it seems kind of impossible. He bided his time until all the white officers decided to spend the night on land. After this, he convinced the entire black crew to go along with this crazy life-risking plan. Then he donned the captain's uniform and proceeded to go sail through the checkpoints. Each checkpoint required a very specific hand signal. If he didn't get that hand signal perfect, they'd be blown up. But Robert Smalls is awesome, and he got each one of them perfectly. Of course, now you'd think all you'd have to do is raise the white flag, and then the North would let you in. But there's one problem. They're on a big southern ship, and they got a teeny tiny little flag. If the North soldiers didn't see that flag, then they'd be blown up. Fortunately, right before the North was about to commence fire on Robert Smalls, they saw the white flag at the last second, and that saved his life. Now, finally, they make it to a semi-safe and place where they can have a better life. But instead of relaxing, he went to go fight in a war. And then, even though he saved several lives and then continued to go and fight for what he believed in favor of the North, he didn't stop there. He went to become a politician, very specifically the legislator of South Carolina. So, if you had a pirate plus a spy plus a soldier plus a politician, you would get Robert Smalls. Somebody please tell me how nobody's made a successful movie on this guy. He is awesome. And so is Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first female black female self-made millionaire. But she wasn't always like this. She used to wash clothing for other people, and between washing clothing and taking care of her children, she didn't really take care of her hair, which caused it to fall out. So to remedy this, she concocted several toxic chemicals to make an immoral and deadly and lethal. No, I'm just kidding. What she actually did was she found a lot of substances that were known to have healing properties. After this, she mixed it in with a little perfume to make sure it didn't stink, and her hair started to grow back because of it. Now, she thought this stuff made hair grow back. What it was actually doing is healing the scalp so that the hair could grow back. She realized that there were several other black women in the same situation. So what she did was she continued to make several batches of this stuff and then go door to door selling them. And what she did was she went, okay, I will give you the treatment for free if you buy the product. And she sold so much using this method that she ended up hiring several other women to do the same thing for her. And eventually, after doing this, she became a millionaire, and she was finally able to afford stuff like ice cream. Now, you'd think after having the life that she had, she would just relax for the rest of her life. But she didn't do that. That was not good enough for her. So, she became involved in the NAACP, which was the organization to help fight segregation. And she even used her fortune to help other black kids go to school. Now, Eartha Kitt, she was an interesting case because even though obviously she's black, otherwise she wouldn't be on this video, she wasn't completely black. Eartha Kitt was light-skinned, I suppose. Like, you know those black people that aren't like dark black? That was her. And because of this, not only did the whites hate her because she was black, but the black people hated her because she was white. Her own mother didn't even want her. She gave her away to slavery. And even when she got out of that, she was forced to bounce between her friend's home and the subway. Eventually, she was like, okay, I don't want to live in the subway anymore. So, she sang and danced her way out of poverty through sheer determination. She is most notably known for her role as Catwoman and her song Santa Baby. But she was also in the movies The Emperor's New Groove, Holes, The Emperor's New School, St. Louis Blues, Ernest Square Supers, Kronk's New Groove, Harriet the Spy, Eric the Viking, Preaching to the Friday Foster, Anne the Came Loves, The Jungle Book, Mowgli's Story, Up at the Chastity Belt, The Mark Hawk, Fatal Instinct, Butterflies in Heat, The Feast of All Saints, Synonym, Preaching to the Choir, Dragon Art, Escape from Cluster Prime, From My Life as a Teenage Robot, To Kill a Cop, I Woke Up Early the Day I Die, Living Doll, Santa Babies, The Pink Chiquitas, Once Upon a Halloween, Serpent Warriors, Master Dragon Art Hill, Saint of Devil's Island, Ill-Gotten Gains, and Behind the Director's Cut. And along with getting herself out of poverty, her career actually sort of made progression in getting people to view black actors equal to their white counterparts. Now, Mr. Bluford. Now, he often says that he's an engineer that just went to space and not an astronaut. But even before he was that, he was in the Air Force for 29 years. He earned the Department of Defense of Superior Defense Award, or Superior Services Award, 3 Meritorious Service Awards, the Air Force's Legion of Merit, the Commendation Medal, NASA's Distinguished Service Medal, and an Exponential Service Medal. And then on top of that, he earned not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 spaceflight medals, and was inducted into the International Space Hall of Fame in 1997. So I think it's safe to say this guy was out of this world. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist making that joke. Next up, Hattie McDaniel. Now, she was the first woman to win an Oscar. But, of course, like the rest of these people, the people on this list, she didn't really start out that way. Or, for the most part. When she was in school, she actually became semi-popular because of her singing, even though she was like only one of 2 black kids in her school. Afterwards, she pursued a career in radio, where she not only sang, but she was also a comedian. So she was by no means a one-trick pony. She got her Oscars for her role in Gone with the Wind. And oddly enough, the NAACP was actually highly against this. And I was rather confused when I first heard about it, because as I mentioned before, the NAACP is against segregation. Now the reason, as I later researched, is because she took a role as a maid. And you can see as to why there'd be a problem. The NAACP is trying to get people not to look at blacks as if they were servants, and here is a woman becoming famous because she was a servant. So it's understandable as to why the NAACP was so against it. But, quoting Miss Hattie McDaniel, I would rather be a maid in Hollywood and make $700 a week than be a maid and make $7 a week. But this was not her only accomplishment. After becoming famous, she also tried to buy her own house. But they were like, no. And guess what the reason was? Yeah, that's right. It was because the neighborhood she wanted to live in was a white neighborhood, and they didn't want black colored people in there. But she was like, I ain't about to take no for an answer. I'm going to get me that house, and there ain't nothing you can do to stop me. And then eventually she did get her house. But more importantly, this act actually got other people their houses. And let me explain why. See, at the time, this area wasn't really open to having black people come in, and it was legal not to let black people live there. So because of this actually enacted the series of events that allowed people to buy the home they wanted regardless of their color. Now, Garret Morgan has invented quite a few things, one of which is an extremely important product and very used on a daily basis by quite a few people. Hair straightener. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a rather impressive invention, but it's not the only thing he invented. He also invented the gas mask for when there are too many beans at the table. What? Really? It wasn't for beans? Then what was it for? It's to protect you from deadly gases. But isn't that the same thing, though? Oh, okay. So this gas mask, of course, as you can probably figure, saved several people from dying from very toxic airborne chemicals, and has saved a few people at the dinner table when there are too many beans. But he was not done there. See, he sat down one day and said, what is if somebody's in a rush and they need to get somewhere really quickly, what would be the best way to inconvenience them? Stoplights. No, but all joking aside, the stoplight actually saved so many lives. See, when he invented this, prior to his invention, there were cops standing in the middle of streets trying to direct traffic. And they were often overpowered or run over. Heck, the event that got him to make this thing was when a car crashed into a horse-drawn carriage. A little girl was severely injured, and the horse was so injured that it had to be put down. His invention saved so many lives, and are still doing it today, even if they're sort of stopping us from getting to anything important across the street. Now, Mr. Johnson, he's not very famous, but if you do know him, it's probably because of the Super Soaker. Okay, not this one. It was the prototypes at the top, and the original, the one consumers bought, was at the bottom. But frankly, in comparison to the other stuff this guy invented, these were lame. Now, don't get me wrong. The Super Soakers were an awesome toy, and they were revolutionary in the toy industry. But he worked on so many other things. Before this, he worked on the stealth fighter program that was so top secret, his wife couldn't even know about it. On top of that, he worked on nuclear-powered rockets and the Galileo project. Heck, he's not even done yet. He's working on a device to turn heat energy into electrical energy. Pretty soon we'll be able to charge our phones with our own body heat. It's pretty cool if I do say so myself. Heck, the Super Soaker wasn't even the only gun that he invented. See, he saw that Nerf had a dart gun, weak little wimpy thing. He was like, I can make a better one. And it was like, nuh-uh. It was like, yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, prove it. And I'm like, okay, I'll prove it. And he ended up making a superior dart gun and ended up essentially becoming the king of all toy guns. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I sort of have this picture of like several kids coming up to his house and challenging his kid to a water gun fight. And then there like a stealth jet come up from the backyard and have mounted Super Soakers on it, and then just blasting everybody. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty cool. Now, before we move on to the next person, let me ask you something. If I asked you, who was the first one not to give up their seat on the bus? Who would you tell me it was the first? Chances are you'd probably say Rosa Parks. Now, don't get me wrong. I really think we should give a lot of credit to Rosa Parks. And heck, I don't even think we give her enough credit, since that's not all she did. She was also highly involved in the NAACP and helped organize the whole case to end bus segregation. But 9 months before she did it, there was a woman, or rather girl at the time, Mrs. Colvin, on her way back from school. And when they asked her to give up her seat on the bus, she was not happy. She was mad. She was even mad when the policeman came trying to tell her to get out of her seat. And essentially, along with Rosa Parks' case, her case was used to end bus segregation and segregation just overall. So, even before, like I said, even before Rosa Parks, 9 months before her, Miss Colvin did. And I can't say for certain that I don't even think she was the first, but she's definitely somebody who doesn't get the recognition she deserves. Next, if you play video games, you better thank this guy like 100 times. Or like, show your gratitude to this dude. Because he's the reason you're not paying $500 per pop for a game. Let me explain. See, before him, say you had like that ping pong game that you played on the screen. If you had a console that played that game, that'd be the only game you'd be able to play. If you wanted to play, say, another game like a racing game, you wouldn't be able to play it. You'd have to buy an entire other console. So he decided that was stupid, and he invented the system that allowed you to play multiple games on the same console. You just needed to switch out the cartridge. And he ended up developing his own company and making the cartridges for companies like Atari and Nintendo. I mean, think about what life would be like if this guy wasn't around. Like if it weren't for him, you'd be paying $500 per video game. Think about it. You want to play Halo? $500. You want to play, I don't know, Call of Duty, another $500. You want to play Overwatch, another $500. If you even want to play one of the cheaper games, like don't get me wrong, Rocket League's still a really fun game, but it is on the cheaper side. But even if you wanted to play that game, another $500. That's $500 for 4 games. Heck, could you imagine just storing these things? Like, you think it's bad trying to find room for just one Xbox? Try 4. Good luck with that. So, point being, this guy doesn't really get the recognition he deserves, even though his invention essentially led to like the CDs and the downloads that we have today. Next up is Miss Dorothy Height. Now, frankly, she just doesn't get enough credit. See, she was very involved in the civil rights movement. Heck, she is arguably as involved as Martin Luther King, and possibly even more so. She was the one, that famous speech that Martin Luther King did? I don't know if you guys know about it. It's not too much of a big deal. It was called I Have a Dream. That speech was planned by, Miss Dorothy Height she didn't write it, but she was the one who talked to people who were organizing the entire event into letting Martin Luther King speak last. Now, this took a lot of discussing, but unfortunately, even though she was able to convince them to let Martin Luther King speak, they weren't convinced to let her speak, which is probably why she wasn't famous. And the reason for that is because she was a girl. Can you believe that? But in any case, she was so intellectual and knowledgeable and inspirational that I was actually the one that Martin Luther King ended up going for advice. She was the one that all the civil rights leaders would come to for advice. So the point is, even though she's not that famous, she has just as much, if not more so, to do with the entire civil rights movement as Martin Luther King. Okay, maybe not more than, but she's got quite a bit to do with the civil rights movement. And frankly, she, like the rest of the people on this list, she really doesn't get those recognitions they deserve. So I think that we should give them all a big thank you, considering all the stuff that we constantly have today and we generally take for granted. And frankly, I don't think, even though we should, most of us probably don't know about any of the people on this list. Well, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. And this video will conclude my Black History Month event. But don't let that stop you from going on to my Instagram and Facebook and liking and sharing all my posts for the Black History Month event. Well, guys, that is it for this video. If you want to comment on what I can make a video on next, or if you just want to tell me how great of a job I have done, then I certainly don't mind that either. Otherwise, make sure to subscribe. Now, do me a favor, share this with everybody who doesn't know about these people, because as I've said several times before, these people deserve quite a bit of recognition. I mean, could you imagine if we had to pay $500 per Xbox, or if we didn't have gas masks to protect us from when somebody had too many beans? So, heck, please even send it to your teacher so that we can stop learning about this same black person I mean, don't get me wrong, the people they usually talk about are pretty awesome, but there are more than just one of them in entire existence. So go ahead, share, comment, subscribe. Otherwise, make sure to hit that bell button so you can catch my next video. And until then, hear nothing and listen to all. Bye, guys.